Welcome, everyone. What a beautiful day to be introducing a friend of mine that I think y'all are going to like as much as I do. His name is Cade Houston. No, that's not Houston. Those of us that are local to me. And I know that Cade probably gets that a minute or two when he's walking around. Be Informed Partnership. That's who Cade works for. How are you, Cade?
Doing good, doing good.
Good. Well, I'm gonna go ahead and say that Cade and I both are experiencing the snotty nose. So if we sneeze or mute ourselves, you just don't worry about it. It's part of it, right? It's part of it. Well, Cade, welcome. I'm so glad you agreed to talk with me today.
Thank you.
I want to read something really quick about Be Informed Partnership, because I think a lot of us know about you, but I don't think we know why you're there for us, okay? And this is just off of their website, and I'll make a link to it in the magazine. The Be Informed Partnership is a national collaboration, that means a group of people, of leading research labs and universities in agricultural science to better understand honeybee declines in the United States. What a big deal. I can't stress enough how important that is for us to know these numbers, right, Cade?
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
Well, and the other part that I had two parts highlighted. I'm gonna go ahead and get there. The key to our success is the true partnership we maintain among a wide range of disciplines, including traditional honeybee science, economics, statistics, and medical research. And I know personally, having been a part of your numbers, how important that is. So I got that out of the way. And so that's Be Informed Partnership of the overall. So what does Cade Houston do for BIP?
So I'm a tech team field specialist. I'm based in College Station, Texas, out of Texas A&M. We have a lot of, we mostly work with commercial beekeepers. They sign up for our program. They get a certain number of inspections every year. Usually we try to shoot for 4 visits per year with our commercial guys. That normally covers almonds. We're out in California. I'll actually be leaving for California Sunday. That's usually our first visit. Our second visit is usually in the springtime, post splits. Then we do a June visit, which some beekeepers like that one. Some beekeepers opt out of it. And we also do a pre-treatment, which is usually in August before honey supers are pulled. Usually that's up in North Dakota and South Dakota and also Nebraska. So that's pre-treatment, and then we do a post-treatment to see how their mite treatments work, because the pre-treatment is before treating. You can't, with most available mite treatments, you can't treat with honey supers on. And then post-treatment is after honey has been pulled, they've treated for mites, and we go and check and say, okay, your mite treatment worked or your mite treatment didn't work. So those are usually those are the big sampling periods. There might be 1 or 2 outliers here and there that want inspections on a certain date. And that's another thing we do. We try to really give the beekeepers what they want, what they need for their operation. It's like a specialized plan for each beekeeper.
That's awesome. Isn't that awesome? When you said that in June, some of them opt out, we know why. Yeah. They're busy.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's our busiest time pulling supers, and depending on where you are and all.
That's right.
How cool. So, and I know primarily commercial beekeepers, typically because they need that structure. And I will say, I did my homework on your results, and I do every year because it's important to me, and I encourage all beekeepers watching this. It's really important that we participate in your yearly annual survey. Those numbers, and your commercial beekeepers, they're right in there reporting, but as hobby beekeepers, we factor into those numbers. And I'd like to talk about that for just a second. So migratory beekeepers, is everybody ready? Drum roll. Have the lowest losses of anybody. Isn't that something? What that tells me is that they do a very good job of the mite keeping mites in check, right?
I will say we work with some of the most amazing, like best commercial beekeepers out there. Like and with our data that we give them, they've got it down. They're really great beekeepers.
They are. Well, and depending on where you read or what you read, sometimes they get a bad rap for being commercial. The word commercial puts them in a different light. But these folks have to keep very good, healthy bees. They're taking better care of their bees than some, than a lot.
And it's the mindset of they didn't get to this high number of colonies for no reason. Like you have to keep great, you have to have a good plan and a good management strategy to get to these numbers and keep those colonies healthy. And they really do good with that.
They really do. Something interesting to me that maybe you can help me, I guess, just help me make logic of it, is I highlighted some of the states that had the lowest numbers. Proud to say Texas was one of those. We were at 13.57%, 13.5% loss. That's pretty darn good. Mm-hmm. That's unfortunately only out of 88 beekeepers. Only 88 beekeepers reported in, which is way too low. Mm-hmm. But that was over 115,000 colonies. Mm-hmm. So as I look through the states in California, North Dakota, these are migratory beekeepers. It's small numbers reporting, but massive amounts of bees that don't necessarily live in that state.
Right.
So when you go see these beekeepers, Cade, are you going to their migratory state or are you going to their home state?
Well, actually, it's both. So when we start in spring, we go to California to the almonds. So we're going out there. That's where their first inspections start. We tag those colonies. And then when they come back to Texas, usually around April, they'll most of them will have already split by then. Then we do another round of inspections. And then those colonies, usually the ones that are tagged in almonds, we try to follow those, but it's a little bit difficult because those get split. So it's not the original queen normally. Sometimes it is if it's a parent colony that they leave the queen in.
Sure.
However, in the April visit, we tag those again. And what we try to do is follow those colonies to the Dakotas or Nebraska, whichever, wherever they go. And then we follow those for the next 3 visits.
That's something. So you do actually mark, and I'm guessing it's almost like a tracking where you're tracking its location and where it's traveling to and its mite load each time.
Well, we don't really follow the location. It's not like a GPS.
Oh, gotcha.
It's a small plastic tag, and what we'll do is we'll go to these yards in June or August, wherever the beekeeper is. And then when we come back in, August or September, we'll go to the same yards.
Interesting. Super cool. One thing that stood out to me, and I don't want to pick on New Hampshire, but New Hampshire had a terrible, terrible loss, over 77%. And of course, knowing where New Hampshire is, I'm reversed on the screen, knowing where New Hampshire is in our contiguous United States, do you personally know why that was? Was it primarily hobby beekeepers? It wasn't that many hives. It was only 845 hives. That means those people ended up with only a fraction of those left over. Right. Would you happen to know what?
I don't really know. I don't really know on that one. I was kind of out of my region, but how many beekeepers reported?
39. So 39. I mean, I'm thinking it's a very small state.
Right.
It could be weather related because, that's one thing that I've quoted you before about BIP is that you're going on losses. You're not actually going on what killed that colony.
Right. We do have the section where beekeepers report what they think killed the colony, and it's easy to think it's one thing when it could be another. So it's, it's hard to really determine that factor that actually killed the colony. So you said it was New Hampshire.
Uh-huh.
I'm not terribly sure what that one was. What happened there?
Well, and two, that's another place where, and I'll drop the study and we'll move on. But that's why it's so important for every beekeeper to report in. And if Texas, my area only had 88 sign up, I can't encourage everyone enough to get in there and do that report. We're going to link in the magazine the months that's available for us to go in and log our results, because it's important. The overall results, the June to June for 21-22, that was 39%, I believe, loss, which tops is get up there at top. And we need to get a handle on this, and organizations like yours, really and truly, we use it as the benchmark through the industry. We really do. So let's talk about bees. All right, let's talk about bees. You see a bee or two.
Oh yeah, saw some yesterday.
Saw some yesterday. Well, me too. Isn't that funny? What beekeepers do on their spare time, right? And of course, it's our JOB. So when you go out to in general, this is a generalized question. So are you seeing right now, and of course, I want to say right now, we're talking February, early spring. So this videos can be witnessed throughout the year, but right now we're talking early spring. What are you seeing, and it's going to be southern region, of hive conditions? What's going on in the hives that you're seeing?
So far, we've seen really pretty good hives. There's a few that did get smaller over winter, which you'll have that, but the maple is blooming. Like there's lots of pollen coming in. I saw bees yesterday, like they were just sitting on the ground in front of the hive with pollen baskets full because they couldn't. It's like they ran out of gas before they could get to the entrance. And it's just it's amazing to see that, and see that queen really kick that brood nest off. I mean, yesterday I was seeing anywhere from 1 to 4 frames of brood already, and they're really kicking off. So it's looking good. Mites have been low so far this year, which is a good sign, because last year we saw kind of an uptick in mites last year. If you were wanting to breed mites last year, it was a good year.
If we could just figure out and not be a treatment company how to make money off mites, we would be rich, wouldn't we?
Right.
So what are your honey stores looking like in those hives? Are they still holding, or are folks having to feed?
They're holding fairly well, but it's about to be a time to feed, because there's really not a lot of nectar coming in. Most of the maple is mostly a pollen producing tree. And they're definitely starting to work through those stores, because they're rearing a lot more brood. That queen's, she's amping up that brood nest. So it's definitely be watching your colonies and the weight and how much the stores that they have. And if you notice robbing, that's probably a good indication to feed a little bit.
It really is. It really is. I know that in our colonies, it's feed time. Valentine's Day is the time to start loving your bees, is what we say. Right. Buy your sweetheart something, but then feed your bees. Start really paying attention to your bees.
Right, and it's also a pretty good time to go ahead and put a mite treatment on, just simply because there's not as much brood in these colonies. Most of your mites are going to be on your bees, so it would be a good time to try to get ahead of them before spring. Try to get ahead of that bell curve. And really get a good knockdown to go into spring.
Yeah, and just to expound on that, so you were mentioning 4 times, and I'm on that page. So we do before spring really hits, before honey supers go on, after honey supers go on, and then before we have to really finish in fall. That is a truly when folks need to lock in on getting those mites tested, the bees tested, and those mites knocked down, because every one of those reflects what's coming after it, right?
Right.
with honey production, and you talked about last year seeming to be higher numbers. I feel your pain there. I'm with you.
Yeah.
It's and it's not even pollen time yet, really, even though Maple's out. We really and truly are seeing. I don't know if last year, the 2022, was because of a rebound of the previous year where we had such a cold winter. I don't know if there's a correlation to that. People smarter than me need to figure that out. But we've had a warm winter this year so far, all across the nation. We had that one big swath that came through the whole nation and got everybody for about a week. But then really it's been a warmer than I don't know how long you've been doing this, Cade. How long have you been tech team?
I started working here in 2020.
20. So this
June of 2020.
Okay, June of 2020, right in COVID, right after COVID was
in the middle of COVID.
In the middle, yeah. Seems like such a close but yet distant memory, right?
Yeah, it does seem like that.
It does. Within 3 years, I mean, we have every year is different, and if I know anything, beekeepers go, well, this year's different. Well, they're all different, right? They're all different. So if we had that deep freeze of 2021 that we refer to as Snowmageddon in our area, the mites, so they reflected the following spring really high. So it makes you wonder what if there is a correlation to what the winter brings to what the spring brings on mite loads.
Right. We were looking at some graphs the other day, just yearly trend data for different regions. And the end of last year, from I would say from July probably until November, it was really similar to 2020. We saw a big mite growth and then the drop, after treatments, but then it started kind of ticking back up, and it was like, okay, this is either they're going to knock them down again, or it's going to be really bad. So, but what I'm seeing so far, just in the inspections that I've done in the past week, they're down. So it's not as bad.
That's good.
Yeah.
Well, we expect people to go into spring at least checking and see. Right. There's so many, and I'll tell everybody I want them to read your article. You wrote an article for us.
I was gonna say test. Know your mite levels, because that's gonna be the determining factor in whether you treat or whether you wait, and it's gonna show you where you're at on that bell curve with your mite population. Because if you don't know that, they're going to get ahead of you. They always do.
They win. Well, they've got a nice little warm nest to go into, right?
It's the perfect environment.
Perfect environment. So I noticed in your article, and this is a segue, I want everyone to read your article, or if they read it now, they get to see the video, that you had said 3% is the threshold.
Yes.
And it depends on, because sometimes Honeybee Health Coalition, which you also tout as a wonderful resource,
absolutely,
they kind of start at 2% as the really watch it close.
Yep.
So is your threshold 3%, or will you ever kind of do something at the 2% range?
I would say 3% is pretty much a base level. However, it can be dependent on time of year too, because if you have a 2% level now, it's going to be rough by June. So
sure.
Definitely it can be dependent on the time of year, but 3% is what we go off of, just as a base level.
I think that was a very good reference that you made, that time of year, that 2% is not acceptable at all.
Right.
If we're looking at population increase right around the corner, which it is for a lot of us, except for our really, really northern folks, and they're just going to be a shift of a few weeks behind us.
Right.
If you're 2% right now in that test,
that's right,
you need to really get your plan in gear.
Right. And especially if the queens are already brooding up, that's 2% on the bees, but how many are under the cappings?
That's right. That's your number right there, right? The expansion of those as it goes day to day is is just incredible. It's just
exactly
through the roof.
Right. And getting that 3 weeks, this may be something we talk about later, but getting that 3 weeks of treatment, if you do treat like that, making sure that you cover the entire cycle and get, all of those mites that are under the cappings exposed to that treatment. That's your goal.
Well, we'll use that as a segue. I'm glad you brought that up.
Okay.
So let's talk about treatments. The importance of doing that full cycle. The 3 weeks you mentioned, some treatments are 3 weeks, some are 4 weeks, 2 weeks, 2 weeks, and you switch it out for a new dose, 44 days on Apogard and so forth. What in your experience, are you on most products, because there's, and this may be a catch question, you've got so many available out there, that from the organic, the acids, the full-on synthetics. Do you find that we've got to treat more when we're doing the lighter version, the organics, as opposed to the synthetics?
That's a good question. I will say Apovar, with the the active ingredient is amatraz, is still probably the most effective treatment out there.
I've heard that
for these mites. However, we are starting to see a little bit of resistance. So you need to be rotating your treatments, whether it be with oxalic acid or formic acid. As long as you're following those label, as long as you're following the label, you should get a good mite kill. I know with formic acid, you want to be careful of older queens, because it can damage those older queens and in some cases kill them. So you really just have to time your treatments. And I would say that between organic and synthetic, they work. You just have to make sure you're timing and you follow the label. Make sure that those things are right, and you should be good.
Well, and I'm a fan of the acids. Formic acid is a good product. Yeah. It is. Mitaways Quick Strips is a good product, just to name one. But acids are organic. Those that aren't aware of that, there's a segment that is organic and that is not considered organic. And the acids in the group are essential oils, or some that are essential oils that are. So when you treat and you rotate, how soon can I go back to that? So if I did Apogard 1 month and I did Apovar, if I rotate, when can I go back to the Apogard?
That's a good question. I think honestly, as long as you're rotating, you could go back to the same treatment in the same year, just
gotcha.
After a rotation.
Okay. Well, and that's always been a question proposed to us, is how soon can I, because a lot of people have favorites, OA is a big favorite. Oxalic acid is a big,
right.
And I'm gonna guess put you on the spot here. Do you know of any studies, or your visual that are you seeing where the mites are becoming resistant to OA?
We have not seen that, no.
Yeah, and the overall consensus, yet. And the overall consensus is that the mites aren't becoming resistant, and you can stick with OA. Yeah,
I think you can. I think with OA, it's, for me, I've used it before, and this is just a personal opinion. This is not, let's say, a professional opinion. I didn't see a great knockdown. I saw, and I've seen it in a few others, it's a good maintenance treatment. If you get your mites low and then you treat with it, it'll keep them at that level. But if you have a high mite count already, it's really not going to do much for you.
In your experience?
In my experience.
Right. And to me, it's a time of year specific. It's a very good product. We've used it many, many times, but if you are doing it in brood times, you're going to have to do that and stick with it. It's every brood cycle. You're going to need to get those and some people are saying 3 to 5 weekly sublimations, unless you're doing dribble, but even that with doing dribble, you're going to have to continue on and keep it going, or it's not going to do you a bit of good.
That's right.
Right. Well, that's good stuff. And bless your heart, I feel your pain, and I don't know how in the world I haven't joined right in with you. We could have gotten a choir with our. I told Cade before I hit record that it's funny how our bodies create excretion in order to get rid of these little colds. 'Tis the season, as we say, right?
That's right.
And you admitted you had some honey before we got on to help.
I did.
You did. Well, is there anything you'd like to tell our listeners before we close about Be Informed partnership and what you'd like the takeaway to be from that great company that you work for?
Yeah, I mean, I'd just like to say that we're here to support and serve beekeepers, and I'll give my email, I'll give my number.
It'll be in your article.
Right, it'll be in my article. Like, if you have questions, if you have anything, give me a call, shoot me an email. Like, I'm here, we're here to serve beekeepers, we're here to support the beekeeping industry, because, as an industry, if we don't help each other, I mean, are we even an industry?
Ooh, good. That's good, Cade. That's
what we're here for. That's what Be Informed is here for. And whenever that loss and management survey comes out, fill it out. Like, it's a citizen science. It's it's completely optional, but your information and your data goes into our database and goes towards helping beekeepers. That's our goal. And we're trying to be that bridge we're trying to bridge that gap between science and management. And, with your help, we can do that. And there's also Sentinel apiary programs that's on our website as well. I'm sure they'd be happy to have you. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Thank you for having me on.
Oh man, very well said, Cade. Very well said. Well, I appreciate you, and we're going to stop back in and visit with you in a few months and see how things are going. And I'll get another article from you too.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
All right. You take care of that cold, and we'll talk soon.
Absolutely.